Hey guys, Fuller here with Custom Offsets TV on the YouTube. We're doing an episode of Shit I Never Knew. We're gonna compare rough country versus BDS in this 2015 Ford F250. Let's go take a ride.
Custom Offsets team stands the team on top of it now. We ain't never gonna fade, so you better get ready for taking over the game.
Alright guys, so this is a 2015 Ford F250. Right now, it has the 4-inch rough country, just like a basic kit. I think it's right around $1,000 or so. And the customer is switching out to put in a 4-inch BDS. So it's the same size lift, he just wants to try the quality of the BDS. So he's getting a 4-inch BDS with Fox shocks, and that kit's only like, I think it's $1,600, so it's not that much more expensive. So that's why we just wanted to show you, I'll give you my opinion on how it rides with the rough country and then how it rides with the BDS after we install that. And we'll kind of show you some of the process of switching out the lift kits. So I'd say initial impressions, we're on just like a city street, 35-mile-an-hour street. It's a little bouncy and it has kind of like a hop to it. Like you feel like you get in the grooves of the road and it just kind of bounces with it. So it's kind of pushing you back and forth a little bit. You can feel the resistance every time you hit the bumps. But it's not a terrible ride. I would say it's definitely stiffer than stock. Another guy at the shop has a very similar truck to this. I think it's a 2011 F250. And I drove that when it was stock. So this is definitely a little rougher than stock, I would say, but we'll take it down, get it on the highway, we'll try some highway driving, and we'll just go on a country road and see how that's like, and then we'll take it back to the shop, get the BDS put in, and see what the differences are. Should add too, so these are 35-inch tires. I believe they're Firestones that he has on here right now. The tire selection definitely does make a difference too, and especially on these heavy-duty trucks, you have to really pay attention to your load range, because depending on what tires you put on, it's going to affect your ride and definitely impact towing. Seems like some of the bigger bumps that we hit, you can really tell that it almost shakes like the whole truck. Stuff that's in here is kind of rattling when it hits the bigger bumps. You can just feel like some of the plastic and stuff in these Fords is not like a soft touch material. It's pretty rigid plastic, so it's it makes noises when you hit the bumps. So we'll have to see if that goes away with the other kit. And if you're curious too, this truck is it's a gasser, not the diesel. So I believe there are different kits because they come with different spring rates for the front, just because of the difference in weight. So you have to pay attention when you're ordering to make sure you get the right kit, if you have the gas engine versus the diesel engine. And like I said, this one is gas. So we're just gonna turn here and get up to speed on the on-ramp and then see what this thing is like on the highway. As far as road conditions, the road's in pretty good shape here on this section of highway. They redid it, not too long ago, a couple of years back. Definitely still has some bounce to it for sure, but you're gonna have that in any truck. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty bouncy. You can really feel each one of the sections of concrete here where they're split, where the freeze lines are. Up in Wisconsin, they basically cut the concrete so that if it freezes and expands, you don't get these giant cracks. Obviously, with the weather we have up here, you still definitely still have plenty of imperfections in the roadway. But you can probably tell in my voice too, it seems like as I'm talking, it's shaking, because we keep hitting these bumps, and it does shake the truck pretty decent. We're going along right at 70 here, which is the speed limit currently. And it's not a terrible ride, but I would definitely say compared to if you're used to driving a stock truck or if you have a regular passenger car, it's definitely not as smooth as you would expect. Now, it's nothing like I have a race car on full race suspension, and that thing down this road is just really clipping along, and you can feel everything jolt in your back. This isn't like that. You just definitely feel the road, but it's not like it's extremely uncomfortable, but you can definitely tell every time that you run over a crack in the road or hit a bump. So we did city, we did highway, now we're just gonna get out of town a little bit, on a less maintained country road, and just kind of see what the ride quality is like there. I'd say at slower speeds, it seems to be more floaty, not quite as rigid like when you're up on the highway. You know, it's pretty stiff, but some of these manhole covers and, you know, the potholes that you might hit as you're driving on these country roads it's not so much of a jolt as it, you know, you kind of sink into it and float through it as you keep driving. You still have a little bit of hop after you hit that initial bump. So I'd say this kit's probably better at highway speeds than it is driving on a country road. And obviously in the city, usually when you're going only 35 or 25 miles an hour, you don't, you know, the bumps that you hit aren't nearly as much of an impact on the truck as at higher speeds. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what this kit rides like in, you know, different types of driving environments, whether it be on the highway, in the city, or on a country road. We'll take this back to the shop then. We're going to have them install the 4-inch BDS with the upgraded Fox shocks, and then we're going to take it for a drive again and see what the difference is. So like I said, I've never driven this truck, so this is, you know, initial impression and just what I think about this 4-inch rough country kit. So we'll take her back to the shop. All right guys, so we started pulling out the rough country kit and we're gonna start putting in the BDS kit. We just wanna give you a quick rundown on, as far as the rear components, the differences. So this is what you get with the rough country kit. You get this block that's like a spacer basically that goes on top of the factory block in the rear, whereas the BDS gives you an entire replacement. So you get the whole thing as one solid piece instead of the two separate ones. And as far as the U-bolts go, the BDS ones are much thicker, and they're like a coarse thread as compared to the ones that you use with the rough country kit are thin and fine thread. So, you know, way more strong, obviously, almost doubling the thickness of the metal here. And the hardware is different too. You get these nice heavy duty nuts for your U-bolts. And the U-bolts on the BDS kit are flipped around. So on the rough country kit, they're going down like this into this piece on the bottom. And the BDS kits go upright. So they're coming up from the bottom, and this is your piece that's going on top. And the reason why they do that is to increase the clearance underneath the axle. So BDS also includes this relocation bracket for your brake lines. So this replaces the stock one that the rough country has. So with that bracket, you're basically stretching this. This will allow you some slack in the brake lines. Lastly, the major difference in the rear. So this is the Fox shock that's going in this truck. And if you look at it side by side with the shock from the rough country kit, you'll see the Fox shock is not only taller, but obviously this is an aluminum body shock too, so it's not gonna rust like this one. This kit's only about a year old, and this shock is already pretty rusty. So that is the rear components. So we'll get back to working on the truck and then show you the front. All right, so we're gonna give you a quick rundown now of the front components. We'll start with the track bar brackets. So rough country utilizes the stock components for the track bar, whereas BDS gives you this big giant drop bracket, which is super durable and has a really nice finish on it. And then we'll kind of move down the line. This is for the radius arms. So the rough country components are gonna use, it's not boxed in. You can see you can go right through the bottom there. And then these sleeves are also not welded in, whereas on the BDS kit, this whole bottom side's boxed in, fully welded, and the sleeves in here are also welded in. The hardware is a little more durable as well, grade 8 versus grade 5. And then you have your Pitman Arm Drop. Rough country kit is gonna utilize the stock Ford Pitman Arm. BDS gives you a drop bracket for that, or a drop Pitman Arm, I should say. The next really big thing, so the rough country kit uses the stock coil spring, and then I have a spacer, which is this component, which sits in your knuckle, and then obviously your coil goes on top of it. It's the stock coil. And the BDS one gives you a full replacement coil, which is also thicker than the stock one. So when you're switching out lift kits, you know, you already had a 4-inch rough country in this truck, and now we're going to a 4-inch BDS. The part that sits on top of the knuckle here with the spacer. So rough country gave you longer hardware, but we're removing the spacer now because you no longer need it with the BDS kit, but this hardware is now way too long. So you do have to get new hardware so that you can put in the larger BDS coil. Lastly, big difference here with obviously the Fox shocks, this aluminum body shock.
versus the steel shock with the rough country kit. Again, like I said before, this kit's only about a year old. You can see the steel body is already starting to rust, so you'll get better looks out of the aluminum body shocks, and hopefully it rides better. So, and then lastly, these are components that rough country just doesn't give you at all, but BDS does. This part is the steering stabilizer drop, Cody tells me, and these are for the sway bar drop brackets for the sway bar. So rough country doesn't give you those at all, BDS does, and that's that. We'll get this all put back together and then take you for a ride and kind of compare the differences.
All right, so we're back in the 2015 F250. Just got the BDS lift kit installed, so we're gonna take it out for a drive. Now, before I give you any sort of review on it, I just wanna say this isn't sponsored by any company. You know, this is just my noble opinion on how the BDS rides compared to the rough country. So nobody's telling us what to say, we're just driving it because we'd rather give you an honest opinion than try to sway you one way or another. So the first thing I noticed, I think the difference is, now we're driving it on the same roads that we did with the rough country, and it has the same wheels and tires on as the rough country. The first thing I noticed was that it doesn't have the dump truck effect, we call it, where when you're hitting the bumps, it's like lugging you back and forth and you feel like you're bouncing in the seat. It just feels like, you know, a regular bump now. It's not like holding you back. And I think another really obvious thing for me was I had mentioned that when you're hitting bumps with the rough country, you could hear the plastic in the truck rattling. I don't hear that anymore with the BDS, and we're in the same section of road that we were last time. So the ride quality is definitely better, but it's not like you're driving in a Cadillac or a Buick or something like that where it has that really floaty suspension. You know, it's a truck. It's going to have a rougher ride than a car would, but if you are buying a truck, I'm sure you know that. So I guess first impression on the city streets, again, this is like a 35-mile-an-hour road, is it's better, but it's not like significantly better than the rough country, just a little more comfortable. So we'll take it and then get on the highway here and see where the difference is. I'm guessing that that's probably where we're going to see the biggest changes on the highway. And before we get up there too, I'll just kind of explain that like I mentioned earlier in the video, rough country kit's like right around $1,000 for this truck, and the BDS kit's like $1,600. You know, equipped with the Fox shocks like this one is. So it's not really a huge price jump. So if you can swing the $600 for the quality of the BDS, it's something that I would probably recommend doing. But if you're just going for the looks and you want a 4-inch lift on your F250, then just spend the $1,000 and get the rough country if you're okay with sacrificing some of the ride quality. So just merging on the highway here, I'm hoping that you can also tell a difference in the camera. I know it'll probably be difficult to tell, but you know, if you watch the rough country section, it was pretty bouncy. And then in this, I would say, and Max will probably agree with me, that the ride quality is better. It's still bouncy, but again, like I said, it's a truck, it's going to be bouncy. I definitely think it is smoother though. You definitely don't have the lugging effect, and that's what really drives me nuts when you're driving trucks that have lift kit system, is when it's like pushing you back every time you hit the bumps. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. You know, if you haven't driven a lifted truck or experienced what that feels like, I'm doing the best as far as explaining that, but definitely something that I'd be able to put up with daily driving as far as this BDS kit goes, compared to the rough country one. So we'll just head down here a little further, and then we'll get off and go on a little less maintained road, a country road like the 45-mile-an-hour roads, and see what it's like there. The other thing I noticed too is under braking, the front end doesn't seem to dive as much with the rough country. I wasn't even braking heavy, but it seemed like every time you're getting on the brakes, you know, coming off the highway and the off-ramp, you know, the front end seems to dive down, and naturally it's going to with, you know, any vehicle, but with the BDS kit, it seems to stay more level, and part of that might be because the BDS kit has new front coil springs, whereas the rough country kit just used the stock springs and then had a spacer. So, you know, these are the correct rate and everything for the weight of this truck. And they're a beefier spring, which I'm sure you saw clips of earlier. But we'll go down here, kind of see what the rest of this road's like, and then give your opinion on that. All right, so now we're driving down like a country road. Speed limit's 45 here. Not quite as well maintained as some of the roads through the city. And I'm gonna say that this is actually where it feels the smoothest to me. right around the 45 to 50 mile an hour range. You know, the road does have some cracks in it, a lot of tar strips. You get some bigger bumps, but for the most part, it eats these up pretty good. And you know, where I live, I'm usually driving these types of roads to get to work until I get into the city. So this is where a majority of my driving is done. And I'm gonna say this is way better than the rough country kit as far as these country roads go, by leaps and bounds. All right, guys, so I hope that clears things up for you if you're looking for, you know, possibly buying a rough country kit versus a BDS kit. Tried to share my opinion on the ride quality differences as well as some of the differences on the parts. So if you're looking for a rough country kit or a BDS kit for your 15 F250, I hope that helps you. If you have any more questions, feel free to just drop them in the comments below. And also make sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe at youtube.com/CustomOffsetsTV. We'll catch you next time. Quiet on set, making movies. Hey, John. He's on the phone. So we'll start with the trailing arms. I said it again. Sick. We should start this whole thing over, Max.
Come on, just keep going. Keep going.
I'm barely into it.
Send it.
Nice. That dude just honked at that guy. Damn, look at that Jeep.
Oh, damn.
Look at the Jeep, look at the Jeep, look at the Jeep. Wish I had no doors.